Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains episode review. This time, we will be going over episode 48. I do want to apologize for the delay. Usually I upload the reviews the same day they come out, which is Wednesday, but because there was a delay for Crunchyroll, I did not get to do the review before I go to classes, which I usually do, and my classes literally start at 1 in the afternoon, and they don't finish till 10 at night on Wednesdays. So if I can't do it before classes, there's no way I'm going to be able to get it out to you guys on Wednesday. So I do apologize for the delay, but I am very excited to talk to you guys about this episode, and hopefully you guys still are, wanting to talk about this episode as well, even though it has been a day, because generally speaking, I thought it was a very, very strong episode. I thought it was another good episode, and Season 2 has gotten off to a really great start. The end of this episode, the last 2 minutes were extraordinary. I thought Soulburner's entrance, his debut, was incredible. I really, really loved it, with the red lightning and then the fire tornado coming down, and then him debuting, and the little dialogue between him and Flame, and the fact that they are about to most likely duel in a 2-on-1 duel against Bit and Boot, which are two new characters that got introduced to us as well towards the end of this episode. But I'll get into that, because there was a lot in this episode that happened, a lot that we can speculate on, and a lot that we can discuss, and maybe some scenes we can rewatch, including that Cyberse Magician summon. Finally, we got a ritual summon. I went on record in a video saying that, a ritual monster was confirmed to appear in VRains. After it didn't appear in the Revolver duel, I was a little nervous. I was like, geez, I hope I didn't, I hope Cyberse Magician is gonna appear, and I didn't make like a video that's fake. And the main reason I went on record and said that it was definitely gonna happen is because it was the pack cover for Cybernetic Horizon, and every card that has appeared on the cover of a pack is always featured in the anime. So that's why I was like, oh, we're definitely getting a ritual in VRains, which we did. Cyberse Magician did appear in this episode, which was nice, along with the water code talker that we've been waiting for, shooting code talker, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The episode starts off with Bowman trying to land a direct attack to end the duel. Playmaker uses the effect of Link Karibo to negate the damage and basically save himself. Then he goes off, as the protagonists always do, and he summons Cyberse Witch, which, when that came out, when that card was summoned, I knew Cyberse Magician was right around the corner, because that monster's effect lets you add I believe it's a Cyberse spell card and a ritual monster to your hand, even though Playmaker didn't specify the kinds of cards that he was adding, which I kind of liked, because if you didn't know that this was going to happen, then you're completely caught off guard when he activates like a ritual spell, which was really cool. So Playmaker goes, he activates Signet Ritual, which lets you ritual summon any Cyberse card in your hand, which in this case was Cyberse Magician. Another interesting thing is when he activated this card, Haru, also we got the name of Bowman's little brother. Well, first of all, they're brothers, which we did not know, so that's a whole nother thing. But Bowman is the older brother to Haru, and Haru is not Hal. There's so many ways when it comes to kanji that you can interpret a name, and so that's why you have to wait. Remember Blood Shepherd at first, our main translator thought it was Brad Shepherd, because they can be literally spelt like the same way. So there's just no way to know until the character's name is actually spoken. I think I would have liked Hal a little better, to be completely honest, but his name is Haru, which is fine. That's what his name is. So he makes a comment that says a ritual Cyberse card that wasn't in the data. So that was interesting. Also, he knew that Shooting Code was a new code talker monster, meaning he either has studied Playmaker, which most likely he has, or he's watched Playmaker extensively to know that this was a new code talker. So these two knew a lot about Playmaker, and that there might not be any major connection there, because I feel like everyone knows a lot about Playmaker. I'm pretty sure he's summoned new code talkers before, and like Naoki has commented on it while watching, or something like that. So there's probably not a lot there to take, but I think it is interesting that clearly Haru and Bowman and this group have some sort of data. They've gathered some sort of data, whether it's your standard data or whether it's data they gathered from destroying the Cyberse world. That remains to be seen. We're assuming that these guys did destroy the Cyberse world, and it's very interesting that maybe when they did that, they pulled all the Cyberse cards and this data, and that's why Bowman is using a Cyberse deck, because he was able to get Cyberse cards or something like that. Or, some people are speculating that maybe he is the bigger, more bulkier orange AI, the orange Ignis, and if that's the case, then Bowman is a victim of the Lost Incident, And I guess that's possible. There are certainly a lot of different ways we can see this play out. But anyway, the ritual summoning was beautifully animated. I absolutely loved it. And we finally had, even though it was a little short, we finally had a monster chant where Playmaker says, like, the sorcerer that wields dark power will become one with these two monsters, something like that. It was a little short, and it actually reminded me a lot of Blackluster Soldier, the chant that Yugi had for Blackluster Soldier, with like two souls becoming one. I don't know if anyone else kind of felt that reference, but I did a little bit. Not sure if that's the ode that they were making. And the only reason that's been fresh on my head, of course, is I made a theory video over the past weekend, and Blackluster Soldier was obviously a big topic of that theory, so I recently watched that summoning animation like less than a week ago, so maybe that's why it's just kind of fresh in my mind, but I thought that was cool. And Cyberse Magician, of course, it looks very similar to Dark Magician, maybe not in terms of color scheme, but in terms of the 2500 attack, in terms of it being a magician, maybe an ace, you could say, of Playmakers. So Cyberse Magician goes for the attack, and if it lands, Bowman is going to be defeated. Bowman ends up saving himself due to some magic cards and raising his life points, and then Bowman's white glowing, crust around his body starts to dissolve, and he starts to scream in pain. And Playmaker then asks, who are you? What's your name? And Bowman, screams, who am I? Clearly he has no idea what's happening. I didn't think that he was like playing dumb or anything. I genuinely thought he didn't know what was happening. In fact, even when that attack was coming in, it looked like he had no emotional reaction to it when that Cyberse Magician attack was coming in. And it wasn't until Haru yelled to him through the speaker and said, hey, do something, that's when it clicked in his brain that he had to act. I feel like if Haru didn't say anything to him, he would have just taken that attack and lost. I feel like, I don't want to call him brain dead, but that was almost the vibe that I got from him. It's like he can't think for himself. I don't know what the hell's gone on with him, because that was probably the creepiest. And I like how they played even like the creepy VRains music when we got back from the commercial break, because it is kind of unnerving that this guy has absolutely no idea what he's doing. And it was also creepy when Ignis, which also I think it was funny that I said you stole the one of our acquaintances' consciousness. This is another chance where one of them have a chance to call Kusanagi a friend, and they don't. They just say he's an acquaintance, which I'd put at a level below friend. And remember, Playmaker in his duel against Revolver said he had no friends. So again, just subtle hints that they don't view Kusanagi as a friend. At least that's what I got from it, and maybe that's just me looking too much into it, but I thought that was an interesting choice of words. I goes on to say, you stole the consciousness of our friends, and Bowman says, well, who would do such a horrible thing? And I was like, it's you. You were the one who did it, and Bowman's like, I don't remember doing that at all. And this literally happened probably 5 or 10 minutes ago, and he has no recollection of it. So either he was being controlled when it happened, and like someone was using his body and he had no idea what was happening, or he literally has horrible memory loss and suffers from terrible memory loss. I feel like it's the first one, honestly. I feel like he was being controlled, being hypnotized, and someone was kind of using his body to steal the soul of Jin Kusanagi, or the consciousness of Jin Kusanagi. Again, for what purpose, that remains to be seen, but Bowman clearly had no recollection when he came to, and it wasn't until Haru said, you promised to get our memories back, you're dueling for our memories, then Bowman, it's like his eyes changed a different color. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but it looked like his eyes turned red, as if like the programming in his brain or whatever it was, or the outside control like turned on, and then after that, all of a sudden he had some memories back. He was like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm dueling you for lost memories. Our memories are on the line in this duel, even though he wasn't the one who challenged Playmaker to a duel. He even says, why are you challenging me? Like, why are you facing me? He had no idea what was happening. I don't know. It was just an eerily creepy scene. I guess that's the best way I can put it. Eerily creepy. And after Bowman, I guess you can say, gets turned on. Oh, jeez, that's gonna sound wrong. Turned on, as in, like, his brain, because I feel like he was sometimes there, and then sometimes he wasn't, and you guys know what I mean. Jeez, that was a horrible choice of words. He goes and attacks Playmaker, does some heavy damage, thanks to, like, a card that makes the attributes on the monster attributes on Playmaker's field the same as his monsters. His monsters are able to kind of attack directly, which was an interesting strategy, but Playmaker ends up ending it by going into the Data Storm, pulling out Shooting Code Talker, which, by the way, the attack animation for this Code Talker was awesome. I have heard from a few people that in terms of effects, this is like the worst Code Talker or one of the worst, but obviously you guys can let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you think it can make any sort of a splash in a decent deck, or if it's not really feasible, because that is, again, not my area of expertise, but I do love to hear what you guys have to say about that. But I did enjoy the name. I enjoyed the bow and arrow animations of him just sniping people, not people, but the monsters on the field. I really love that animation. And Playmaker ends up with the 3 attacks of Shooting Code Talker, ends up defeating Bowman. Bowman flies to the ground. Playmaker goes and starts to, interrogate him and say, you have to give back what you stole. Ignis I goes in for the kill, I guess you can say, goes in to try to eat the data, eat the memories, and Bowman lifts up his arm, and I gets, I guess, horribly infected. In fact, gets so horribly infected that even when Soulburner came and debuted, I had absolutely no comment, probably because he was unable to speak or was still, infected by this virus. Because, he comments about everything, but he had no comment the rest of the episode, except just like you could hear him kind of screaming in pain right after it happened. So that was a freaky scene, and then Haru ends up saying, good thing I installed that anti-Ignis program. So clearly this group has some really good technology if they're able to install a program like that. A program that Revolver didn't even think to install. And Revolver hated the Ignis, hated the Cyberse, and yet he didn't even think to install that program. So that was interesting, and I thought, again, the technology that this group has is definitely going to be something to I think, fear for Playmaker and I and the others going forward. They start racing off, Haru and Bowman, and Haru calls for Bit and Boot, and they come from the portals. And, I kind of like these characters. They were so, I feel like, monotone that it was kind of humorous. They're like, there's an Ignis, and our enemy's Playmaker. Like, they had no emotion, which was kind of an interesting dynamic, and Playmaker's like, get out of my way, I have to chase them. And then Soulburner, just like Revolver, I think, with the tornado, Soulburner comes from a fire tornado when he debuts in front of Playmaker, and that was an awesome scene. He shows up. His voice is great. Again, this is the voice of Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, the voice of Todoroki from My Hero Academia, Kaji Yuki. If you look him up, he's considered to be one of, if not the most popular voice actor in Japan, currently speaking. So the voice was awesome. Even when he said, like, I'm Soulburner, that was all. I cannot wait to watch him. His voice is going to be incredible. And then we see Flame, and Flame says something very interesting. He says, I've been waiting to put my skills to the test. So clearly these two just got reacquainted very recently, if Flame has not dueled with Soulburner yet. Also, Playmaker acted like he knew Soulburner. He was like, and then Soulburner says, go on, I'll take care of these two clowns, and Playmaker leaves. Either Playmaker was going to say, like, you're the kid from the incident, you're Soulburner, or he could have been saying something like, you're on my side. So it might not have been a case where Playmaker recognized him, but usually when a character says, like, you're followed by dots, which happens more than you'd think in anime, usually they have some kind of knowledge on who that person is. So that'll be interesting to see if they maybe knew each other or do know each other from the past, or maybe Playmaker just remembered when he looked into the eyes of Soulburner. I really don't know. But again, Soulburner and Flame recently rekindled, and it'll be interesting to see if Flame has any knowledge on the Cyberse attack, since, as we know, Yusaku's Ignis was not there, but maybe Soulburner's Ignis was. So very excited to see him duel. In the preview, it looked like his eye went on fire. His eye did go on fire. The intensity that this character is going to bring, one, because his voice actor is incredible, two, because he just seems like a more serious, badass character. I cannot wait to see. I know I'm fanboying hard right now. I cannot wait to see this guy in the next episode. I'm so excited. But anyway, guys, I am going to cut myself off there. So please let me know all your thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains episode 48. I do apologize for the delay. I hope the review was enjoyable, and I hope you guys agreed with some of my points. If you disagreed with any, or if you have any other theories that maybe I didn't mention, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for the recent support, especially on the theory video and the anime anime characters appearing on cards video. Both of those videos I think have over like 40,000 views, and I uploaded them literally less than a week ago. So the support the channel has seen recently is incredible, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. So again, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you down below, and I hope you have an amazing day.